The Secrets of Doctor Who is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, episode 238.
One day, I shall come back.
That's it. I've been renewed.
Is when a Time Lord's body wears out, he regenerates.
I'm a Time Lord. I'm not a human being. I walk in eternity.
Braveheart team.
Change, my dear, and it seems not a moment too soon.
Unlimited rice pudding.
Physician healers. Wearing a bit thin.
Fantastic.
I am Scottish. I can complain about things.
Ooh. Should be fine.
Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series, Doctor Who. And today we're discussing the 11th Doctor story, Snakes on a Plane. Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. And joining me today on the panel is Jimmy Akin. Hi, Jimmy.
Do we have to do this one, Dom? I mean...
Hey, Father Cory somehow got out of it.
Father Cory doesn't have to discuss dinosaurs on a spaceship.
Folks, you're in for a fun one because we do not like this episode. I think we're in agreement on that. But we're going to talk about it. We have things we want to say. But before we get to that, remember to retweet the Secrets of Doctor Who and like it. Retweet it on SQPN's Twitter account at SQPN. Like it on the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page and share it with folks and let them enjoy our our enjoyment of this episode of Doctor Who. Also, if you enjoy the Secrets of Doctor Who, you would probably also, and you like Star Trek, you will definitely enjoy the Secrets of Star Trek, which is a show that Jimmy, Father Cory, and I also do. And you can find that wherever you get your podcast from or at sqpn.com/trek. All right. This one was written by Chris Chibnall, who is the current showrunner for Doctor Who. And, before we get into that, I suppose we should do a recap, Jimmy. So let me hand it over to you and let you do the recap.
Lots of stuff happens, none of which is engaging, much of which is incoherent and ridiculous, and ultimately it's just a boring and uninteresting color and sound pattern display playing on your screen for 45 minutes.
And thanks for coming, folks. We'll see you next time.
In a little more detail. So first we should say this entire episode, the premise of it, is back a number of years ago, there was a movie called Snakes on a Plane that was in
2006.
production. Yeah.
Yep.
And as part of the marketing for that movie, the marketing team created a bunch of internet memes, which became really popular. They really went viral. There were all kinds of snakes on a plane. And it was a movie about a batch of snakes getting loose on a plane. But for some reason, it caught the zeitgeist and people were really...
Samuel L. Jackson helps with that.
Yeah, people were really into it. And ultimately, the marketing eclipsed the movie itself.
Yeah.
And apparently, the Doctor Who people were so caught up in these, they wanted to do their version. And so they did Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. To recap, the Doctor gathers a group of companions, including Amy, Rory, Rory's dad Brian, Queen Nefertiti of Egypt, and a big game hunter named Rydell. He takes them to the 23rd century, where a giant Silurian space ark is about to crash into Earth. But all the Silurians are gone, leaving their dinosaurs behind, leading to dinosaur hijinks. The Silurians are gone because they were ejected into space by a space pirate named Solomon. Solomon is thoroughly repulsive, obsessed with objects of value, and demands that he be given Queen Nefertiti because she is an object of value. Nefertiti, bizarrely, demands to be given to him. The 23rd century Indian Space Agency fires missiles at the Ark. To save the day, every member of the Doctor's crew gets paint-by-numbers jobs to do. Rory and Brian fly the Silurian spaceship together. Amy and Rydell get to stun dinosaurs together. And the Doctor and Nefertiti deal with Solomon together. Ultimately, the Doctor knowingly and deliberately causes the missiles to swerve into Solomon's ship with him on board, despite the fact that Solomon was begging to be saved. So the Doctor maliciously kills Solomon in spite of the fact he could have taken him with them and saved him. The end.
That's a pretty accurate summary. I gotta say that is a good recap of it, including its deficiencies. There were a couple of things.
Oh, I haven't gotten to the deficiencies yet.
Yeah. Well, there are a couple of things I liked about this, and we'll get to that. Minor things, but as I mentioned, this was written by Chris Chibnall, who is the current showrunner. He wrote a couple of real dogs in the era before he became showrunner, and I'm still wondering.
All of his stuff before he was showrunner was substandard.
Yeah. Although apparently the critics liked this one, and there was a lot of the audience liked it, and I'm not sure why, but there's that. So it's Chris Chibnall writes this thing, and for what it's worth.
Well, so the audience appreciation index on this was 87 out of 100, and if you watch Doctor Who audience appreciation scores, they're usually in the 90s.
Okay.
So even this one did not please as much the regular viewers as much as a normal one would.
Okay. Yeah. I'm just thinking about where this fits within it. It feels a lot like the 13th Doctor stories that Chibnall writes.
Well, it does. In fact, I mean, he didn't know he was going to be showrunner at the time, but if you look at the group he's got, number one, we have an abnormally large number of companions. So it's not just, normally we have 1 or 2 companions. Here we have 5. On his own episodes, it's standardly 3. At least it has been thus far with the 13th Doctor. Also, if you look at the representation that he's doing of different groups, Nefertiti is a young woman of color from another culture, like a proto-Yaz. Mm-hmm. And Rory's father, Brian, is an older white man and is like a proto-Graham. And so there are, even on the character levels, there are some similarities. Although I have to say, Nefertiti is way more assertive and interesting and self-confident than Yaz, the apparent patron of mental patients, from what we're told about the upcoming series. I mean, she's already displayed a lot of vulnerability and insecurity, and apparently they're going to be, turning that up to, I don't know, 11, but to some higher number next season.
Right. And, I mean, I kind of like Nefertiti in this. I mean, there was some things about her. There was some incomprehensible stuff. I liked Brian in this.
Brian was okay.
I like Rory's dad, played by Mark Williams. Brian Williams was played by Mark Williams. That viewers may recognize as Arthur Weasley in the Harry Potter movies. And he's currently playing Father Brown in the BBC adaptation of the Father Brown's series by G.K. Chesterton. So
he's allowed to play someone smart instead of dazed and walking through life?
Yes, he is. So we have this. You're right. And there's sort of this, the Doctor even says at times, like he calls the group almost like a family. I think he even does he even say family at one point? He might not, but
I don't remember that.
But there's references in the dialogue to like him just being joyous at having his group. This is my club, my gang, or he says something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's very reminiscent of what Chibnall will eventually do with the 13th Doctor.
Yeah, it's also reminiscent of it in being uninteresting and unengaging.
Right. Yes, exactly. It's not what we've come to love about Doctor Who. I mean, anyway.
Yeah.
Let's move on from that.
So before we get into some particular things, I need to comment about Nefertiti.
Yes.
So Nefertiti, now bizarrely, they have when she's asked who she is, she doesn't start out by saying Nefertiti because she's a really regal character, and she says, "I'm the Lady of the Two Lands." Okay, fine. And then she said, but that's a reference to Upper and Lower Egypt. Those are the two lands. And they were united in different periods of Egyptian history. Nefertiti, was a monarch in what's called the New Kingdom. And she was initially the wife of Amenhotep, which they refer to. They refer to her husband as the Pharaoh Amenhotep, except he didn't keep that name beyond the 5th year of his reign. because after beginning with the 5th year of his reign, he started a new religion in Egypt that worshipped only a representation of the solar disk known as the Aten, and he changed his name to Akhenaten, which would mean the living image of the Aten. And he insisted that all of the other Egyptians go along with this new religion, and eventually he insisted that they stop worshiping their traditional gods. So he turned Atenism into a new monotheism. And this is the thing that he is most famous for. And so today, people do not know of him as Amenhotep. They know of him as Akhenaten. And so it makes no sense from a writing perspective to have Nefertiti referring to him for the audience as Amenhotep. If you want the audience to understand who she is in history. Now, she may, incidentally, have briefly served as a pharaoh herself upon the death of Akhenaten before her son Tutankhamun came to the throne. That's debated. But the chronology they have here is mixed up because we're shown on screen at the beginning of the episode that the Doctor is with her in the year 1334 BC. But the problem is that that's the year Akhenaten died. So there is no way he would be referred to as Amenhotep in 1334. So as an Egyptology geek, I'm already unhappy.
All right, I'm gonna do some headcanon here. The TARDIS translation circuits translated Akhenaten to Amenhotep because that's what Amy. No, I don't know. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's whatever. Yeah. So she's the one.
Oh, also,
one of
the Doctor messes up history because he leaves Nefertiti in 1905 or 1902 or whatever it was with John Rydell, the big game hunter in Africa.
Yeah. And Doctor Who has kind of played fast and loose with messing up history in the past, like where characters get information that if they had actually known this, it would have changed history and that sort of stuff.
But usually they don't rip someone out of their own historical context and leave them somewhere else if they're a major world historical figure. It's not like the Doctor picks up Winston Churchill in 1945 and leaves him in the year 3200, thus canceling all of his post-war career.
Right. So, yeah. And then the other character out of time that in this is, like you mentioned, Rydell, sort of a caricature of the African big game hunter, so callous toward big animals, and he's a terrible person.
He's played, well, he's not completely terrible. I mean, they do portray him as a kind of cool guy, and he's played by the same actor who plays Lestrade on Elementary.
Oh yeah.
Only he's considerably younger.
Actually, isn't he in Sherlock too?
I mean, I'm sorry, in Sherlock, not in Elementary.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, because that's where I remember from is Lestrade in Sherlock. Yeah, which is
the Doctor Who actor who appears or related actor who appears in Elementary is Sean Pertwee, John Pertwee's son.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, well, and since Moffat is running both of these, this is about the time that Sherlock was out, so it's kind of fun that maybe you'd be good for this for the Doctor Who thing. But of course, we know that every British actor eventually shows up in Doctor Who, so that was the other thing.
We also have another recurring Doctor Who actor. The villain, Solomon, is David Bradley.
Yes.
And this is before David Bradley was cast as the first Doctor, who initially he was cast as William Hartnell for the 50th anniversary retelling of the beginnings of the show, which was historical. It was a biopic for the show, essentially. Called An Adventure in Space and Time, and he did so well as William Hartnell that they then brought him back for Twice Upon a Time as the first Doctor for the 12th Doctor's regeneration story, and he's also been doing stuff as the first Doctor for Big Finish.
Oh yeah, and the Adventure in Space and Time was about a year after this, so I wonder if they.
So he redeemed himself. Redemption is real.
Yeah, I wonder if the idea was already in their mind, or if this episode gave them the idea to bring him in for that. Because I mean, he's I really like him as the first Doctor. I
Mhm.
think he does a really good job of embodying William Hartnell. So we have this opening scene where, uh, sort of opening scene. We have these introduction of the various characters, but where Amy and Rory come in. It's been what Amy says
10
10
months.
months, and she feels like the Doctor is weaning them off the traveling with him,
Which he denies, but
right.
on the other hand, at the end of the episode, Amy and Rory ask to be let off at home for maybe a couple of months. And so
Right.
and really what's happening is the showrunners are weaning the audience off Amy and Rory.
Right.
Because we've had such a tight relation. I mean, we've had a more tightly related group of companions on the TARDIS for the last couple of seasons than we have ever had before. And with the Doctor and Amy and Rory and River, I mean, we have literally a family on the TARDIS now.
Right.
Involving the Doctor. And so now Stephen Moffat is starting to dismantle that. River kind of comes and goes, so he can have her or not whenever. But he needs to disentangle the Doctor from Amy and Rory, and he's trying to do that rather than have them leave suddenly and unexplainedly like most companions. He's trying to build towards that, even though they will be forced away from the Doctor eventually. They don't choose to leave in the way traditional companions do. But he's playing with, well, how would the Doctor relate to a group of people like this? And by the end, he says that they've been traveling with the Doctor for like 10 years, on and off.
Oh.
And that that they've aged 10 years in the time they've been with the Doctor. So that's
Right.
10 years of subjective time. And that makes sense. If you've got a family going, you don't just ditch them.
Right.
So that's a reasonable thing, but he doesn't have 10 years to show us. And so this is part of the building towards their eventual going away 3 episodes from now. They cut this season in half. The first half of the season is the goodbye to Amy and Rory. The second half of the season is the introduction and initial exploration of Clara. And so we have only like 3 more episodes with Amy and Rory. They're forced away in the final one. And unfortunately, so we had Asylum of the Daleks to begin the season, and we're going to have Angels Take Manhattan or whatever it is, where they leave. And then we have these 3 episodes in the middle, all of which are terrible. And so this is the first of the terrible going away. It's the first half of this season is just crummy.
Yeah.
So it does not live up to what we've had before on the show.
Yeah. These 3 episodes. So it's Chris Chibnall writes this one. Toby Whithouse writes the next one, and he's not had a great track record. He's had some good ones, some bad ones. And then Chibnall writes Power of 3.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just, dogs. And then we get, and the second half of the season is not just the introduction of Clara, but it's also the building to the goodbye of the 11th Doctor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Freudian slip. Yeah, it is interesting the way they build this season up, and it all leads, of course, also to the 50th anniversary special.
So one of the things I don't like about this episode is it only happens. There are certain types of episodes, and I don't know, TV tropes may have a name for this, but there are certain types of episodes that, in detective stories in particular, that only happen. The story only happens because one or more groups of people are irrationally withholding information.
Yes.
If they examples of this in Sherlock Holmes are the Yellowface and the Sussex Vampire. If these characters were behaving realistically, the key character would have revealed the information in the first scene, and the story would never have happened.
Right.
It's only because they irrationally hold back information that the stories occur. Well, this is something similar. This story only occurs because everyone in the story is acting ridiculously adamant and inflexible in their positions. So the Indian Space Agency in the 23rd century is acting ridiculously adamant in that when they fire the missiles on the Silurian ship because it's getting too close, and by the way, they say it's entering the atmosphere when it totally is not.
Right.
And you wouldn't wait till a Canada-sized spaceship enters your
Exactly.
atmosphere to fire
Too
on
late.
it.
Too
Yeah.
late.
But they fire on the ship, and then they realize it's no longer a threat because it's moving away, and they don't call off the missiles. And that's an essential part of it. Also, Solomon acts totally adamant and irrationally in his treatment of other people. And it just at every turn in this, someone is acting adamant and irrational, and simply to keep the story going. And I find that really annoying.
There's another element too, which is plot developments happen that are illogical and unbelievable, but they only exist in order to provide either a story beat or to move the plot along. And one of the things that I'm thinking about is like when they accidentally walk up around a sleeping baby T-Rex. Like, how do you accidentally walk up to a giant lizard laying on the ground, like, and not see it? Like, they're literally standing over it. Like, how does that happen? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Also, like, they at one point beam down to the engine room of the ship, which is a giant beach because the ship works on hydropower, which is nonsense.
Yes.
There's no way you can power a spaceship like this with hydropower sloshing around, especially given conservation of motion and energy.
Right.
I mean, you're over the millions of years this ship has been operated, that ocean is going to get placid, and you're not going to have any more hydro energy. If it ever generated enough energy to run your ship.
Right.
But they beam down there, and then just so they can get menaced by pterodactyls, they can't beam out. And the doctor says, it sounds like what he says is local teleports burn out or burned out on arrival. Now, the problem is if it's the first that local teleports on this ship burn out on arrival, then that's stupid, because you need to, if you have an elevator that goes where you want, the elevator should be able to take you away. But later on, we then see them teleporting away from places that they have teleported into. So clearly this doesn't burn out all of the local teleports when they beam into a place. And that would mean that it just so happened that this one teleport burned out.
Yeah.
For no reason that's explored. The doctor just says it.
Yeah.
Just so they can be menaced by these pterodactyls.
And it turns out that the Solarian ships must be piloted by two pilots.
Oh, yeah.
Who are genetically linked. And so we just happen to have two genetically linked people with us.
And that makes no sense also. First of all, how broad does it have to be?
Right.
Because, I mean, I could see the first thing, we need two pilots. That's dumb.
Yes.
You know, one person with a joystick should be enough. You only do this.
It's not like they're doing separate tasks. They're doing the same thing together.
Right. They're both doing the same thing. And that's just stupid, because you can be in an emergency situation where you only have one qualified pilot available or something like that. And also, by the way, you don't need qualifications to fly this spaceship. It is so simple that Rory and Rory's dad can do it.
Yeah.
But you would just never do this. The only reason to do this is so we can have a yay, Rory and his dad are bonding, doing something together moment at the climax of the episode. It is all artificially constructed to create that moment. There is no rational reason for any of this. Yeah. Now, even if you forgave the two pilots nonsense and said, okay, they need to be related, well, two Silurians should be enough. So presumably two humans would be enough. Only that, and it doesn't need to be Rory and his dad. It could be Rory and Amy, or it could be Nefertiti and Rydell. You know, anybody but the doctor and one of the humans. But then that's still stupid, because why, if you're a Silurian, why do you program your pilot requirements to include someone from the same species if it's not yours? I mean,
Right.
how about, oh, we're a Silurian ship, so we want to make sure the pilot's a Silurian, not some other species that is nevertheless related to the co-pilot.
Yeah.
That's
Doesn't
just,
make-
it's absolutely stupid. It is terrible artificial writing meant to create this one moment, even though it has no rational basis and flies in the face of rationality.
It's all about emotion over character or plot. I mean, that's really what it is. It's about
Yeah.
giving the audience an emotional moment as opposed to developing the character or developing the plot or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other, so a couple of things that I thought were that I want to be some positive. I
Mhm.
like the robots that were voiced by Mitchell and Webb. That-
Okay. That's your
that's-
choice.
Yeah, well, it's one of the things.
Uh-huh.
Like David Mitchell and Robert Webb, like they're a comedy team in Britain, and I always find them hysterical. I always find them their stuff funny. So having them being this robot pair encountering the Doctor and the others, I enjoyed that. I liked that. So
Yeah,
it was fun to notice them.
they have these big mecha suit looking robots that are bickering and scoldy.
Yeah.
And I've kind of seen this trope before, so I wasn't
Yeah.
as high on them.
Well, I'm looking for anything, Jimmy. It's a low bar.
Yeah.
So, did you have anything that stood out as okay?
The CGI was okay.
The dinosaurs were all right.
Yeah. How the dinosaurs were treated was not great.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not concerned about dinosaur cruelty.
Right.
How they functioned in the story was not so great. I haven't even begun to think about the dynamics of the dinosaur ecosystem on this ship, but it doesn't at first glance. I mean, how is that Triceratops getting the plants it eats?
Right.
Enough to fill it, and we've got a disproportionate number of carnivores to herbivores on this ship. You need for every small group of carnivores, you need a much larger group of herbivores. Also, the Doctor is way too trusting of the Triceratops, even though Triceratops is my favorite dinosaur as a child.
Mhm.
I love Triceratopses, but don't assume that because it's an herbivore, it's not dangerous. Look at its head. There's a reason it has those horns, and it uses them. It is evolved to use them.
You know what else is an herbivore? A bull.
Yeah.
Go ask bullfighters about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wild
Um,
animals are still wild.
So one thing I did a little bit like, I guess, some of the chemistry between Nefertiti and Rydell, because they're setting them up to be a romantic pair. In fact, one of the things they're doing here is they're furthering the Amy has learned to function as the Doctor theme. So for a good chunk of the episode, they're split into two groups. The Doctor has Rory and his dad, and then Amy has Nefertiti and Rydell. And Amy just naturally steps forward and starts leading, even though we've got a queen and a macho big game hunter here. Amy
Right.
is still the one to step forward, and they make a point of what she's learned to do in situations like this as a longtime companion of the Doctor. And at one point, Nefertiti and Rydell are fight flirting with each other, and Amy even says, "I will not have my companions flirting."
Right.
And so this is very much like what will happen with Clara. It's an idea that is obviously in Stephen Moffat's mind. What happens when you have a long-term companion that starts to function like the Doctor in the show? And so here we have kind of a little pilot of that concept with Nefertiti and Rydell functioning as Amy's companions, with Amy taking the place of the Doctor.
Right.
And that's kind of interesting. I like that. I really don't like the role of Solomon in all this. Solomon is ridiculously adamant and irrational.
Yes. Evil for no reason.
He's evil for no reason. He is designed to be thoroughly unlikable. And the Doctor early on, it underscores this by when Solomon makes some comment about the doctor says, "Don't ever judge me by your standards."
Yeah.
And that's a sign of how adamant the doctor is in his opposition to Solomon. And it's meant to signal the audience that the doctor and Solomon are simply black and white when it comes to moral standards, with the doctor being white and Solomon being black. And that, but then the doctor kills him.
Right.
And it's like the doctor not just kills him out of necessity, the doctor maliciously kills him when he does not need to. This is not a Fifth Doctor firing a gun into the chest of a Cyberman out of desperation killing. This
Right.
is the doctor having a begging man in front of him saying, "Take me with you. Don't leave me to die on this ship." And the doctor turning his back on him and pressing a close the door button to seal the man behind it so he can't follow them, and then leaving him to die from a trap the doctor has set up himself. This is a cold, premeditated murder. And it's like, I'm sorry, doctor, you are operating on this man's level at this moment. You are not the hero. You are a murderer in this moment, and this is presented as light family entertainment.
I think we're supposed to be like, because Solomon's a mass murderer. He killed all the Silurians. And so we're supposed to see this as justice, but that's not how justice works.
No.
That's not how it works.
Especially not on this show.
That's vengeance.
Yeah. And now, if the doctor were a different person and this were a different show, and it was set up so that, Solomon would never face justice if the doctor didn't do this, or if someone didn't do this to him, well, I could see this as an act of vigilante justice. But that is not what this show has set up, and that is out of character for the doctor. The doctor is too much of a, if not a pure pacifist, he certainly spouts pacifist ideology enough. I mean, even in this episode, we have Amy going, "No weapons," until it turns out they have stun guns to use on the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
So he has this long-standing anti-weapon ideology, and this is just simply out of character for the doctor.
We've seen it a few times that there's a little bit of hypocrisy in that anti-weapon ideology, because the doctor
there's a lot of lot of hypocrisy in it.
He often has no problem. He won't use the gun himself, but he'll let somebody else's weapon do the dirty deed, which in this case the missiles from the Indian Space Agency. It just, doctor, that's still essentially pulling the trigger. You can wave it off all you want. You're still responsible for that weapon killing that guy when you could have prevented it.
Yeah.
So, well, I
I
agree. I don't like
especially
that.
when you've set the trap yourself.
Yes. Right. He put Solomon in the box, and
Yeah.
So that wasn't good.
Let's see. One thing that is happening in this episode at least 3 times that I caught is some bodily humor.
Yeah.
That is fairly light. I mean, at least they're not doing flat out fart jokes, but they're doing things that are pretty close. At one point, the Triceratops is sniffing at Brian's pants, and the doctor, noting that it's an herbivore, says, "Do you have any vegetable matter in your pants?" And Brian's father says, "Just my balls." And he's got golf balls in there that have the smell of grass on them, apparently, which is like really.
That's
A
such a juvenile
Triceratops.
joke.
A Triceratops is going to smell the grass on your golf balls.
Right.
That's just, again, that's unbelievable setup. It's artificial.
It's just set up for
to get
a cheap
that
joke.
line.
Yeah.
Also, later when the comedic robots are squabbling with Rory, one of them makes a comment about, "Ooh, I'm afraid," and then he says, like, "Oh, maybe I am. I just leaked a little oil."
Right.
And then at one point, Rydell is talking to Queen Nefertiti about they made women firebrands in your day or something, but you just need a man who's got a sufficiently large weapon, and he holds up a big stun gun rifle thing for the dinosaurs. And
Right.
so we've got this bodily humor going on here that isn't particularly funny.
In a better episode, they would be somewhat unremarkable. I wouldn't even necessarily mention, but that's the thing is the episode in general is so bad that it just adds to the weight of the bad
Yeah.
of this story.
Also, there are various intertextuality things in this when the Doctor ridiculously easily deactivates the robots, they start singing Daisy,
Right.
which is a reference to 2001. Just lots of unpleasant stuff in this episode.
Yeah. All right. I think we've dunked on Dinosaurs in a Spaceship enough for one time. We can put this one to bed and never talk about it again.
There are worse horrors yet to come.
Oh, next week. Yes.
A Town Called No Mercy.
Yes. Well, 2 weeks. We get a break in between, but yes,
Yeah.
the town. Oh, so the Doctor in a Western, like Doctor in a Western could be so good.
Oh, it has been good.
Yeah.
The first Doctor story, The Gunfighters, that was fine. That was a lot of fun.
I haven't seen that one yet. Okay, so
Yeah.
I got that to look forward to.
Yeah, the Doctor with Stephen and Dodo, I think, in Tombstone, Arizona, for the gunfight at the OK Corral. It's
Wow.
played for comedy, and it works.
Oh well, we'll have to show some mercy. Let's wrap it up before I get into some bad puns. We do want to end by taking a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Doctor Who, including Sarah S., Patrick M., Dawn B., Jonathan S., and John E. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Doctor Who and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. And we'd also like to thank Victor Lambs, who edits the show for us every week. So that's it from us. What do you think of snakes on a plane, dinosaurs on a spaceship? Maybe you have a better opinion of it than we do, or you found something better that we haven't. Let us know by commenting at sqpn.com or the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page, or send us an email to drwho@sqpn.com. We'll be back next week when we'll be discussing the 6th Doctor story, Mind Warp. Until then, Jimmy Akin, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Doctor Who.
Perry should be afraid, very afraid.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest, and I have no quote to add here because it was so bad. Thanks, folks.
Right. This is going to be fun.